news broke like a lightning bolt across America. CNN, Fox, BBC. Every major outlet screamed the headline, "Breaking, Trump calls for immediate ban on Captain Ibrahim Traoré." There was no warning, no discussion, no hearing. Just a cold, one-line executive request signed by Trump himself, declaring Traoré a security threat to the United States. The reason? Unclear, the press secretary shrugged. Burkina Faso's president, known across Africa for his fierce independence and rejection of Western exploitation, was quietly planning a visit to the U.S. for a climate summit. It was meant to be historic, a bridge between Africa and America. But now, he was blocked, silenced, excluded. The world watched in confusion. Some in the media clapped. Others shook their heads. In Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat in silence. He didn't scream. He didn't retaliate. He simply stared at the screen, the headline glowing across the room. Then quietly, he turned to his aide and whispered, "They're afraid of the truth." Outside, crowds were already forming, angry and emotional. Inside the White House, Trump smiled. He thought it was over. But something was coming. Something no one saw coming. And it would change everything. A week later, the world had moved on. Or so it seemed. The media spun the narrative. Traoré is dangerous. He's anti-West. He's unpredictable. But behind the scenes, in a small federal courthouse in New York, a team of human rights lawyers filed something powerful, a motion for emergency review. Buried in the motion was a classified document, one that had never been meant for the public. It revealed something devastating. Trump's proposed ban was not based on any intelligence or risk. Instead, it was the result of a closed-door meeting between U.S. corporate lobbyists, mining executives, and high-ranking political advisors. They feared Traoré's push to nationalize Burkina Faso's natural resources, gold, lithium, and rare earth minerals, would inspire other African nations to do the same. It wasn't about security. It was about money. The document included an internal memo titled, "Neutralize Traoré before the resource domino falls." The lawyer holding the file trembled. "This is illegal," she said. And so, the plan changed. The fight wasn't just about one man's travel. It was about freedom, sovereignty, and truth. A judge agreed to hear the case, and for the first time in U.S. history, the hearing would be televised live. Judge Helen Crawford wasn't supposed to take this case. She was 68, almost retired, known for being quiet, fair, and invisible to politics. But when the motion landed on her desk, something in her heart shifted. She had grown up during apartheid. Her parents were journalists. She knew what injustice looked like. And this felt familiar. The morning of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Cameras buzzed. Activists wept. Flags waved. The air felt thick, like history was waiting to be made. On one side, Trump's legal team, suited, smug, well-funded. On the other, a young black lawyer from New York, barely 30. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "Your Honor, this case is about truth, and we will prove that Captain Traoré was banned, not for what he did, but for what he stood for." Judge Crawford stared down at the sealed envelope in her hands, the one with the memo titled, "Neutralize Traoré." The courtroom was silent. She slowly reached for the seal. As the cameras zoomed in, her fingers trembled. She whispered to herself, "God help me do what's right." And then, she broke it open. The world was about to see everything. The camera lights blinked red. The broadcast was live. More than 42 million people around the world tuned into the emergency hearing in courtroom 6B, something that hadn't happened since the Watergate era. Judge Crawford sat calmly at the bench, her expression unreadable. On the desk before her, the classified memo lay open, its contents shocking enough to threaten careers, maybe even governments. A deep breath. She cleared her throat. This court finds grounds to question the legality of the travel ban placed on President Ibrahim Traoré. Gasps. Even the U.S. Marshal at the door turned his head. She turned to the screen beside her and said something no one expected. For the sake of transparency, this hearing will now include testimony from an international witness. The screen flickered. And then, Ibrahim Traoré appeared live from Burkina Faso, standing in a modest room, dressed in his uniform, calm as ever. But behind his eyes, pain. "I did not come here to attack anyone," he said gently. "But when you silence a man without cause, you silence an entire people." The courtroom froze. Even the judge had to blink away a tear. As Traoré spoke, the room remained silent. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He was human. He spoke of his visit plans, how he had hoped to attend a summit on climate change, to speak with black youth in Detroit, to shake hands with single mothers running food banks. "I wasn't coming to threaten," he said softly. "I was coming to learn, to share, to listen." Then, unexpectedly, he held up a letter. "This," he said, "was written by a 10-year-old girl from Atlanta." Her name was Samira Washington. Her father had shown her a YouTube video of Traoré talking about African independence. The letter said, "Dear Mr. Traoré, when I grow up, I want to be strong like you. Please come to America and teach us how to fight with love." That's when the first tear fell, on live television, from the young black lawyer sitting in the front row. One by one, people in the courtroom began to cry. Not from sadness, but from something deeper. Shame, hope, truth. Because for the first time, millions of Americans saw not a foreign leader, but a man fighting for dignity. As the tears flowed and silence stretched, Trump's lawyer, Mr. Cole Brighton, stood up suddenly. "Objection, Your Honor. This is emotional manipulation." Judge Crawford didn't flinch. "So is banning a head of state without cause," she replied. The court erupted in gasps again. But then, something unexpected happened. A former State Department official, seated in the gallery, stood up and raised his hand. He was trembling. "Your Honor, I need to speak." Whispers flew across the room. "Identify yourself," she ordered. "My name is Jacob Foster. I was part of the internal discussion that recommended this ban." The room stiffened. "And I regret it every day." He pulled out a folder marked confidential and walked to the witness stand. Inside were emails, dozens, discussions of how U.S. mining companies feared Traoré's influence in Africa, how his message of independence was spreading too fast, how certain politicians believed limiting his movement would help slow that momentum. Judge Crawford was speechless. So was the world. The truth was leaking, not from rage, but from conscience. And now the very system that tried to silence Traoré was beginning to collapse from within. And this was just the beginning. Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. At first, it was small, just a few African students waving hand-drawn signs. "Let him speak. Justice for Traoré." But by midday, the sidewalk overflowed with people. Old, young, African-American, Latino, white, Muslim, Christian, atheist. It didn't matter. Something about Traoré's calm voice, his dignity, had moved the nation. Inside the crowd, a young woman clutched her phone, replaying his words over and over. She whispered to her mother, "This man reminds me of Papa before he died. Strong, gentle, honest." And then she cried. Nearby, a U.S. Marine veteran raised his flag upside down, a sign of distress. He turned to reporters and said, "I fought for freedom, not to watch men like Traoré be banned for speaking truth." Police stood nearby, nervous but respectful. There was no violence, only unity. A little girl knelt on the pavement and used chalk to draw a picture of Ibrahim in his uniform, standing tall. She wrote in big letters, "Let good men in." In that moment, the sidewalk felt sacred. History wasn't just being watched, it was being made. The courtroom was tense. Every breath, every blink, every whisper was being broadcast to the world. Judge Crawford stared at the emails handed in by Jacob Foster, the former State Department official. Her eyes scanned line after line of political strategy masked as national interest. But then one email stood out. It wasn't long, just 12 words. "We must block Traoré now, before he inspires the rest of Africa." It was sent by a former top White House advisor, marked urgent, and copied to multiple high-level officials. The judge looked up. "Who wrote this?" she asked. Mr. Brighton, Trump's lawyer, went pale. "Objection," he muttered. "Overruled," Crawford snapped. "We want truth here, not theater." A gasp echoed in the courtroom. "Do you understand what this means?" the young lawyer whispered. This wasn't just about a travel ban. This was about silencing an entire movement. One man was seen as a threat because he gave Africans and black youth in America something dangerous: hope. The audience at home was glued to their screens. Hashtags exploded online. Justice for Traoré. Unban truth. Let him speak. Something bigger than politics was unraveling now, and the ones who tried to hide it were about to face judgment. No one expected what happened next. Judge Helen Crawford closed the file slowly, stood from her bench, and looked straight into the camera. "What I have seen today disturbs me deeply," she said. She wasn't just talking to the lawyers anymore. She was talking to the world. Injustice isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes dressed in paper and sealed with a flag. But injustice is still injustice. She turned to the live feed of Ibrahim Traoré, who watched from his office in Burkina Faso. "President Traoré," she said softly, "you were wronged, not just as a man, but as a symbol of peace and power. And I apologize, as a citizen of the United States." The room went silent. A woman in the gallery wept openly. Even the federal clerk wiped his eyes. Then Judge Crawford dropped the final blow. "I am issuing an emergency reversal of the travel ban. You are free to enter the United States, and you are welcome, in my courtroom and in our country." Outside, the crowd erupted in cheers. Inside, Trump's legal team sat frozen, their plan crumbling on live television. And in Africa, Ibrahim's eyes, those calm, steady eyes, finally filled with tears. As the judge announced the reversal of the travel ban, America shook. But just 2 hours later, something even more shocking happened. Traoré received a call from the White House. It wasn't from Trump. It was from a staffer, a black woman, mid-30s, who refused to give her name. Her voice trembled. "President Traoré," she whispered, "I watched the hearing. I'm sorry." There was a pause. "You don't know me, but I sat in the room when they planned it. They used words like contain him and collapse his rise. He was silent. I couldn't sleep. I have a son, and you reminded me of what kind of world I want him to grow up in." Then she cried, quietly, broken. "Please, keep doing what you're doing. The world needs you." Traoré simply replied, "Courage is contagious. You've already done your part." When the call ended, Traoré didn't say anything to his team. He walked outside and prayed under a tree, not for revenge, but for peace, for justice, for every mother raising a son in fear. That night his prayer went viral, and millions prayed with him. In a small apartment in Detroit, Monica James sat frozen, tears running down her cheeks. She had 3 boys, 2 in middle school, 1 in prison. She worked night shifts at the hospital. She rarely had time to feel anything. But tonight, she watched the clip of Traoré praying under the tree. "He don't even live here," she whispered, "but he's the only leader speaking for us." Her youngest son, Malik, walked in and saw her crying. "Mama, what's wrong?" She smiled through tears. "Nothing, baby. I'm just proud of a man I've never met." Monica clicked record on her phone. She posted a 30-second video saying, "Dear Captain Traoré, we hear you. We see you. You give us hope when we feel forgotten. Please come visit Detroit. Our kids need someone real to look up to." She didn't expect anyone to notice, but they did. By morning, the video had 6 million views. Even Oprah shared it. And in the comments, people wrote one sentence over and over again. "This man is not just for Africa. He's for all of us." By now, pressure was mounting on Trump's team. Polls showed nearly 60% of Americans opposed the ban, even after it was reversed. Protests spread to college campuses and churches. But it wasn't just anger. It was mourning. People were grieving something they hadn't realized they'd lost. Truth, compassion, decency. And Traoré? He wasn't gloating. He wasn't loud. Instead, he recorded a video message, not from a gold desk, but under the same tree where he prayed. "I was never your enemy," he said softly. "My fight is not against America. My fight is against injustice, wherever it lives." He paused. His eyes glistened. "And if my presence here scares people, then maybe the question should be, what are they so afraid of?" The screen faded to black. The world fell silent. Then came the next surprise. Trump's own former advisor, now retired, appeared on CNN holding a white handkerchief. "It's time we admit we were wrong." It wasn't a confession. It was surrender. And just like that, the narrative began to collapse. The man they tried to block had become a symbol of unity. 2 days after the judge reversed the ban, a package arrived at the presidential office in Ouagadougou. No label, no return address. Just a soft brown envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ibrahim Traoré's mother. She hadn't spoken publicly in years, but now her words carried the weight of every mother watching this story unfold. "My son, they tried to silence you, not because you are dangerous, but because you are strong in a way they can't control. But never forget, your strength is not in your fists. It's in your heart." Traoré sat in silence as he read. "Even if they lie on you, even if they mock you, even if they fear you, let them see your soul, not your sword." He placed the letter on his desk and stared out the window. That night he posted a photo of the letter. No caption, just the words, "From my mother to the world." Millions shared it. Thousands commented things like, "This letter healed me. I haven't spoken to my mom in years until now. I'm crying. This isn't politics. This is human." In the small Mississippi town of Greenwood, a 12-year-old boy named Terrence Williams did something no one expected. He walked 6 miles, alone, to his local courthouse. He wore a hand-me-down hoodie and old shoes. But in his hand, he carried a cardboard sign that read, "I stand with Traoré." No one had told him to go. He had seen the clips on YouTube. He had listened quietly as his grandma cried during Judge Crawford's speech. "This man speaks truth, baby," she had said. So Terrence went. He stood quietly in front of the courthouse for 3 hours. Cars honked. A few people clapped. A local journalist took a photo. That image went viral. One boy, one sign, one message. It spread like wildfire. The New York Times called him America's newest conscience. And when Traoré saw the photo, he broke protocol, called the boy's grandmother directly, and asked if he could speak with Terrence. Over video call, Terrence said softly, "Sir, I just wanted you to know. You matter to me. Traoré, holding back tears, responded, And now, young man, you matter to the whole world. The story had taken on a life of its own. Major networks called it the ban that broke the silence. Black churches across America held prayer services. African youth across the continent held vigils with candles and tears. And then, it happened. The UN General Assembly formally invited Ibrahim Traoré to speak at their next session in New York. They called his voice essential to the global discussion on sovereignty and dignity. The same country that tried to block him would now host him on the world's biggest stage. But not everyone was happy. Inside certain political circles, pressure was mounting. Conspiracy theories swirled. Threats increased. Whispers of disrupting the speech began. But Traoré didn't flinch. He gathered his team and said, I'm not going to speak for attention. I'm going to speak for the boy who walked alone, for the woman in Detroit, for my mother, for every voice that's never been heard. His chief advisor asked, What if they try to silence you again? Traoré replied, calm and still, Then let them try. The world is listening now. And they were. 18th of July, the United Nations. The General Assembly Hall was packed. Delegates from over 140 countries sat still. Journalists lined the walls. The world was watching. Then Captain Ibrahim Traoré walked in. No security, no grand entrance. Just a simple military uniform, a calm face, and a presence that made even the most powerful people sit up straight. As he stood at the podium, he took a long breath. Then he opened a folder and pulled out something unexpected. It was the chalk drawing from the little girl in D.C. Let good men in. He held it up. This is why I came. Not to fight, not to accuse, but to remind you that leadership must serve those who have no microphone. He paused. I was banned not for violence, but for vision. And now, I stand before you not as an enemy of the West, but as a defender of truth. The room, silent. No phones clicked, no chairs moved. For the first time in years, the United Nations Hall was completely still. He wasn't just speaking, he was lifting the room. As Traoré stepped away from the podium, something extraordinary happened. First, one delegate from Haiti stood and clapped, then Ghana, then Bolivia, then Germany. Within seconds, the entire UN hall stood up. Applause thundered. Some were crying, some were saluting, some simply whispered prayers under their breath. We have not witnessed a moment like this in decades, one UN translator said on a live mic. He made us feel again. In homes across the globe, people wept. Young men in Nigeria sat in barbershops with tears in their eyes. Teachers in Baltimore paused their lessons to watch. Social media erupted. Traoré UN speech. Let good men in. The world stood still, even celebrities posted. I don't know politics, one actress tweeted, but I know a pure heart when I hear one. Ibrahim Traoré has mine. And in a moment that shocked the internet, Barack Obama reposted the speech, captioned only, Some leaders lead armies, others lead souls. And what about Donald Trump? Sources said he watched from a private golf club in silence. For the first time since the ban, he had nothing to say. After the speech, Traoré didn't stay for photos. He didn't take interviews. He left the UN quietly and walked alone through Central Park with his team. But something happened that his team captured on video. An elderly black woman, maybe 80, recognized him. She walked up slowly, tears in her eyes. You remind me of Martin, she whispered. Don't let them change you. He gently held her hands and replied, They never could. That 12-second clip reached 200 million views in 3 days. Later that night, Traoré posted one final message. To every child who felt invisible, to every mother who prayed for justice, to every voice that was ignored. I saw you, I fought for you, and I will never stop. If this story touched your heart, please don't just scroll away. Click like if you cried. Drop a comment with the words, "Let good men in," and hit subscribe, so stories like this keep reaching the world. Because the more we watch, the louder the truth becomes.